The most dangerous risk nobody talks about. There is one risk that destroys organizations more consistently than any other. And yet, almost no one talks about it. It doesn't appear on dashboards. It isn't labeled high, medium, or low. It doesn't trigger alarms. In fact, it often exists inside organizations that appear successful. This risk is not cyber risk, not financial risk, not regulatory risk. It is the risk of silence. Silence when something feels wrong. Silence when warning signs appear. Silence when decisions don't make sense. The most dangerous risk is not what organizations don't know. It is what they know but choose not to speak about. This risk remains invisible because it feels normal. People don't call it silence. They call it professionalism. They call it alignment. They call it positivity. In meetings, concerns are softened. Risks are phrased carefully. Discomfort is avoided. People say, let's not overthink this. We don't want to slow things down. Management already decided. Over time, speaking honestly feels risky, while staying silent feels safe. And that is how silence becomes institutionalized. Not because people don't care, but because the cost of speaking up feels higher than the cost of staying quiet. Silence doesn't appear suddenly. It grows gradually. The first time someone raises a concern and it's ignored, they try again more carefully. The second time, they soften their message. The third time, they stop raising it altogether. What begins as hesitation becomes habit. Soon, people stop connecting patterns. They stop escalating recurring issues. They stop challenging assumptions. At this point, risk hasn't disappeared. It has simply lost its voice. The organization continues operating smoothly, but critical signals no longer travel upward. And when risk cannot travel, it accumulates. Consider a common situation. A team notices recurring problems in a process. Nothing severe, just repeated inefficiencies. They flag it once. The response is polite but dismissive. They flag it again months later. They're told priorities are elsewhere. Eventually, they stop flagging it. Years later, the same issue leads to a major failure. Operations are disrupted. Customers are affected. Leadership asks, "Why didn't anyone warn us?" But people did warn. They just learned that warnings were unwelcome. The risk was not hidden. It was slowly silenced. People don't stay silent because they lack integrity. They stay silent because they fear being labeled difficult. They fear career consequences. They fear slowing progress. They fear being wrong. In many organizations, outcomes are rewarded more than caution. Speed is praised. Optimism is celebrated. Doubt is tolerated only briefly. So people adapt. They choose language that avoids friction. They share concerns informally, not officially. They hope someone else will act. This is not a character flaw. It is a predictable human response to organizational signals. The most dangerous risk never appears on dashboards, because dashboards track incidents, metrics, outcomes. They don't track hesitation, discomfort, unspoken concern. By the time silence produces measurable impact, the risk has already matured. This is why organizations are shocked by failures. Not because the risk was unknown, but because it was never formally acknowledged. Silence cannot be quantified easily, but its impact is always measurable. Eventually, silence breaks, but only after damage occurs. A failure happens. A crisis emerges. Suddenly, everyone has an opinion. People say, "I always felt something was wrong." There were signs. This was inevitable. But by then, it's too late. The organization moves from managing risk to managing consequences. And silence, once rewarded, is now punished. This cycle repeats in organization after organization. Resilient organizations actively manage this invisible risk. They reward early escalation. They protect dissenting voices. They treat discomfort as data. They ask, what are we not talking about? Where are people hesitating? Which issues keep resurfacing? They understand that silence is not harmony. It is often suppressed risk. In these organizations, risk management is cultural, not procedural. And that makes all the difference. The most dangerous risk is not complexity. It is not uncertainty. It is not lack of information. It is silence. Silence that delays action. Silence that hides patterns. Silence that turns warnings into surprises. If your organization only talks about risk after failure, then risk was never managed, only tolerated. The real question every organization should ask is simple. What risks exist today that people see, but no longer speak about? Because risks that lose their voice always return, louder, costlier, and too late.